that Gosnell's cash-only abortion clinic centered or catered to minority patients, but many members of his staff had not received proper medical training. Now, right there, the AP is admitting he catered to minorities. This is a racist move, and you'll see as we go through this process of talking about this guy that he had a waiting room and examination room separate for whether they were white or colored. Not just black, but brown, Mexican, Cuban, whatever they were. If they were non-white, he had one interview room and an examining room for them, and he had another interview room and examining room for the whites. She described O'Neill as a caring doctor who saw mostly older patients for high blood pressure and diabetes. But O'Neill kept her off as neat in contrast to the rest of the clinic. Now, Tina Baldwin said, so that's where Gosnell steered wealthy and white patients. O'Neill was one of the doctors at his clinic who seen the white patients. And these patients were steered to special meeting rooms separate from where the minorities went. He met with them and administered their medications himself to the white people. But to the minorities, to the people of color, whether they were brown or black or whatever, then he allowed his untrained staff to intravenously administer drug and anesthetics. Anesthesia. When these people would go under, this anesthesia wasn't performed by an anesthesiologist. It was performed by these untrained workers, many of them who were students in high school. 9 out of 10 times, if the patient was white, this is what she said, he didn't want me to administer the drugs because he wanted to meet with them himself, she said. Now keep this in mind, my friends. Gosnell is not some pompous white guy. Gosnell is African American. He's a black man. He's a black man who would apologize to his mostly black staff but say, that's the way it is. That's just the way it is. Whites over there, coloreds over here. That's just the way it is. Gosnell performed as many as 1,000 abortions a year, charging from several $100s to an early abortion to several thousand for a 3-day late-term procedure. Prosecutors contend that he made millions over the years, especially since he relied on untrained, low-paid staff. Now, Baldwin herself faces prison time after pleading guilty to corruption of a minor, taking part in a corrupt organization, and other charges. She admits administering some of the medications to the patients who died of an overdose. Yet she cooperated early on and wasn't charged with murder, unlike other clinic workers who gave medications in 2009 to people who died from those medications. The FBI raided this clinic in 2010, and they did it to investigate Gosnell's distribution of painkillers. Now, Tina Baldwin was at home the evening it was raided, although her daughter was there. O'Neill called to say that she had slipped out the back door, leaving behind her purse and coat, because she was worried about not having a license. She said O'Neill had routinely written prescription on a pad that was pre-signed by Gosnell, even when Gosnell was not working to authorize it. On cross-examination, as the defense tried to suggest otherwise, she acknowledged Gosnell often stopped at the clinic on days off to feed his fish and turtles, but the clinic operations went on with him not there. That seems unbelievable to me. Well, there's a former worker who has testified about this. This former worker, Abby Baldwin, said that she saw babies moving on 5 occasions after the procedure. The doctor is charged with only 7 counts. Now, the Women's Medical Society in Philadelphia, an ex-worker, Ashley Baldwin, testified that she witnessed an aborted baby screeching. Screeching. This gruesome testimony of this House of Horrors murder trial of abortion continued with two former employees describing scenes that strained the imagination. This is how it's described. Ashley Baldwin, who began working on this cash-only Women's Medical Society clinic in West Philadelphia when she was 15, said she routinely assisted Gosnell with abortions, and on 5 occasions saw babies moving following the procedure. Well, Baldwin, who's now 22, was 15 at the time. She's now 22 and the mother of her own toddler, testified she witnessed an aborted baby screeching. This baby was alive. It was breathing and screamed when he plunged the scissors into the back of the neck of this live baby in the name of a late-term abortion. And this guy says he will be vindicated. He's done nothing wrong. Baldwin said they looked just like regular babies. When asked about a fetus described in court as baby A, who the prosecution contends was older than 24 weeks, the legal limit for abortions in the state, Baldwin recalled the quote-unquote especially large baby following the procedure. Especially large. She said the chest was moving. Well, Gosnell trained his employees. He trained his employees. Not medical training, not a university, none of that. He trained his employees to cut the necks of aborted babies to sever their spinal cords. Both Baldwin and Linda Williams and other former employees testified to this in court. That Baldwin himself trained his employees to cut the necks of this baby. What does that mean, to cut the necks? Not slit their throat. This is to plunge scissors in the back of their neck, open up the skin, get a hold of the spinal cord with the scissors, and cut the spinal cord so the baby lays there and slowly dies. This is not instant death. John McMahon, Gosnell's attorney, has argued his client did not kill any infants by snipping their spines. They were already in the death throes because of the abortion drugs he had given them. He's also being charged with the murder of a Virginia woman undergoing an abortion at his medical clinic. This is how, like I said, the whole thing was discovered. Prosecutors say this guy made millions of dollars over the years from his business. He'll face federal charges that he illegally distributed painkillers to drug dealers and addicts right out of his Philadelphia office. This was also part of the reason why they went in and raided him in the first place. He was supplying drug dealers with painkillers. How can this guy have any credibility in court when they caught him through a sting selling painkillers to drug dealers who would then take those painkillers out onto the street and sell them to whoever? He was a drug supplier for illegal drugs on the black market. And then he wants to step into court and say, I didn't do anything wrong. If he's convicted of these murder charges, he faces the death penalty. Williams, one of his co-conspirators, could be sentenced up to 100 years in prison. Baldwin is not charged with the crime. This is the girl that started there when she was 15 years old. This has been some real gruesome testimony. Why is the media not covering this? Why is this not front page news? That's my question here. Why is this not front page news? How can it not be front page news? You know, I'm going to play a clip here in a little bit. Before I do that, though, this clip makes a very good point. You're going to hear it when I play this clip. How is it that we have more restrictions on tanning salons and hair salons? We have more restrictions on your pet than you do at abortion clinics. Abortion clinics get free reign. The government backs that up. How does the government back that up? They say because by restricting anything that has to do with an abortion clinic, that you are restricting a woman's right to an abortion. If you do anything, if you hold them to any standard, then you're restricting the right for these women to have an abortion. This is the outrage that has prompted all of these states to come up with their own laws. And let me share some of this with you before we go too far, because I don't want you to think this is all bad, doom and gloom. There is a bright spot here. You know, there are programs like mine, not only on radio, but also in print. And some of you folks that listen through Twitter, you have the ability to take a small space of your printed medium, whatever that is, whether it's a newsletter, some of you are magazine publishers, do a little something for society. Take a small strip somewhere in your magazine, somewhere in your newsletter, somewhere in your newspaper. For those of you who are listening to me who are publishers of video, radio, or the written word, take a little bit and expose this guy. Expose abortion for what it is. At some point, say that you did something, however small. Be able to say you did something to stop this tide of murder. Because this is what states are doing. And I'm going to point out the Virginia Board of Health, who's expected to approve new rules requiring abortion clinics to meet hospital standards permanently. Shouldn't they have hospital standards anyway? They're doing surgical operations in these clinics. There is blood spilled. But yet they're not held to hospital standards. These states are adopting these rules and restrictions on abortion under pressure from people like you and I, who are saying this is an outrage. Well, these proposed new rules require abortion clinics to make expensive renovations that could drive some out of business, according to the Washington Post. They're saying that this is restricting women's rights to an abortion. So let's translate that. Restricting women's rights to abortion. What that really means is we're restricting mothers from killing their babies. You can't kill your kids. If a parent, a mother, is able to kill their baby in the womb with nobody else having anything to say about it, the father completely out of the picture, you have nothing to say about your own child, then what's going to stop them from killing that baby once it's born? Because they're doing that anyway. You get tired of your toddler. I told you to stay out of that 10 times. I'm sick of it. Just kill him. Because that's what they're doing. This is mothers murdering their babies. Some of them out of the womb, breathing. Gosnell is not the only one doing this. He's the only one that got caught. Come on, people. Well, here's what the Washington Post says. They think this is outrageous. They say the erroneous, unnecessary architectural requirements could make some of the state's 20 abortion clinics close. This comes from Stuart Reed, Executive Director for Planned Parenthood Advocates for Virginia. He says this is an outrage. That they should have requirements bringing them to hospital standards. How dare you? That's what Planned Parenthood is saying. How dare you make us have hospital standards in our clinics where we're doing abortions and surgical procedures? Who do you think you are? Well, these new requirements are being cheered by the anti-abortion groups who liken them